Right. But yeah, I've just been having too much fun playing Fortnite with people. I've been also meeting random folks, which has been kind of interesting.
It
I
can be
usually,
fun.
yeah, meeting random sometimes can be fun. Um, at least I certainly try to make it fun. I feel like I don't know. Some days I feel like I'm just like too nice to people. I don't
Sure.
know. Is that a weird thing to say? I don't know.
No, no, no. That's. I mean, well, I don't know. You can feel that way.
I
You
don't
can
know.
feel like you. Yeah. You can feel like you're the only one going out of your way to,
Yeah. I mean, I try to
be
be.
cool.
I try to be a good teammate. I go in the game chat. I say hello even if people don't have mics. Mm,
Oh shit, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Talking to If you're saying you're talking to strangers and feeling unappreciated, I mean,
Oh, it's not about under appreciation. It's like I personally feel like just as the person that I am, I'm generally too nice to people. Like
okay.
I don't know. Like I have that fear of like being like overly nice to the point that it just like I don't know makes somebody uncomfortable.
Okay.
I don't know. Like I don't know, like I had this situation the other day. Um, and mind you, I ripped a huge dab. I ripped a huge dab, and I went for a walk to go get cigarettes from the store. And I'm walking down this alleyway, and there's a Costco card, a credit card, and a Home Depot card, all in this back alley. And
Oh.
yeah, and I'm like, wow, somebody's probably missing this. And so there was this lady at this that was like in the back alley of these storefronts, and she was walking to her car, and I said, excuse me, do you know blah blah blah? Like, he seems to have left his credit cards here, or lost them. And she goes, no, nobody here, nobody here with that name works here. And I'm like, well, is there any way I could leave these with you because I assume that they came to your store? And they go, oh no, but you can go to one of the other stores and drop it off. And I'm like, I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, yeah, bye. And like, fucked off like super quick, looking at me like I was nuts. And so I'm like, okay, whatever. I go to the UPS store and it's closed. Like all the other stores are closed. And I think that like the more logical place to put it is at the UPS store. So I put these credit cards in the door of the UPS store in hopes that somebody will pick them up. Um,
Okay.
and I go and I get my cigarettes and I walk back and there's another person like right around the same spot in the back alleyway and he looks really frustrated. So I assumed that it was the guy that had lost his credit cards. And so I
All right.
go up, I'm like, hey man, are you so and so? And the guy looks at me like I'm stupid. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, are you so and so? And he goes, no, that's not me. I'm like, oh, well, somebody lost some credit cards. I just wanted to make sure that somebody, I wanted to make sure that somebody picked them up. And he goes, oh, that's nice. And then he turned around and ignored me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not asking for like, oh, good, that's great. Like, you're such a good person or something like that. But like, oh, well, I work here. I can, hold on to those so that way they're safe inside of a building somewhere instead of just hang outside the door of a UPS store. And the police station's on the other side of town. I'm not dealing with that because I'm walking. And I'm certainly not calling the cops to tell them that I found credit cards because then that just leads to a whole another sea of questions.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like the best course of action.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's why I tried to turn it into one of the stores. But yeah, it was Sunday and everything was closed. And again, it was just more or less like kind of the like annoyed kind of response that I got from that. That was just super
Oh,
weird.
people hate it when you talk to them. People hate it if you invent some problem for them to figure out. If you want to leave something with them and hey, look at yeah, no.
And I was honestly afraid
People
that
don't
like
want to deal with it.
no, and I was honestly afraid that I was like I don't know. I smoked a bit before I went out. I was afraid that I'd somehow like given a tell or something like that, and they're like, oh, this fucking high on, get him out of here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sure.
So, but and I can understand that, but like I don't know. Again, maybe I should have just left him in the alley and just have went on my way and did not do the side quest because it was not worth it.
Yeah, maybe.
That figures. But yeah, that was my weekend. Did you do anything fun this weekend?
Doesn't feel like it.
Doesn't feel
No,
like it.
I played that. I played. I yeah.
Oh, Tears of the Kingdom.
I played Tears of the Kingdom. Ate a fucking gank of edibles and knocked myself the fuck out.
And I say your grow's been going good.
Oh my god. Yeah, nonsense.
Growing some nonsense over there.
Absolute fucking absolute gas. Nonsensical gas. Yeah.
Nonsensical gas. I love it.
Crazy shit.
Uh, I need to find a way to get seeds. That's I think that might be
Yeah,
my
it's
course of action. That's
that's
not.
fucking tricky.
Yeah, it's not an easy task. You gotta know somebody that knows somebody, or at least in my state, you gotta know somebody that has a medical license.
It's kind of yeah. They sell them in Massachusetts for an absurd price, so absurd that you got to know someone instead.
Oh, really? That bad?
Yeah. 11 seeds for 300 bucks, something like that.
Wait.
Yeah, Baker's not quite the opposite of a Baker's dozen, 11 instead of 13.
Dude, that's absurd. Like
Yeah, very silly shit.
I mean, I guess it averts people from potentially growing their own and stuff like that, or I don't know. I just think that's bunk.
People that have them don't want other people growing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It limits the
Yeah.
market.
Yeah.
Uh, well, I do believe that is about that time in about like 20 seconds here. But what else did I do over the weekend? Oh yeah, I went to this party, and I'll talk about it once we get to the studio. But like I went to this party, and I don't know. I've been having a hard time remembering it. Maybe we can remember it when we get started here. It's
Okay.
it was a wild one. But
Any video games
any video games? No,
at the party? No Polybius?
no, just a whole bunch of college kids for some reason.
Playing
I got
Polybius and doing LSD?
something like that. I don't know what it was.
Joining the CIA?
It it's a possibility. But yeah, let's do it. Cue the music. All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome once again to Thought That Was Weird. I've got some Thrash K-Shoe, and to my right is the man with the plan. The uh, I had this written down. I had something funny, but I forgot it. Anyway, here's CuyaDK.
I'm CuyaDK and I'm on your left.
What? You're on.
I'm on your left.
What is directions anymore?
Right, okay.
Man, that party messed me
I
up.
agree.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, dude.
Polybius.
I'm starting to forget what left and right are. It's probably Polybius, more than likely. Although I didn't see any stand-up arcade games, but I don't know. It was an interesting time.
Hmm.
I
I
don't know.
imagine.
I woke up in Montreal. That was kind of interesting.
You went to bed where?
I went to this party like right near my side of town at some college.
Okay.
It was just some open party that I saw walking down the street, and then all of a sudden, I'm starting to have a hard time remembering it. But I don't know. I think it was just a random. It was just a really weird random moment.
You
Like
woke up in Montreal.
I went to this party. I think I met, huh? I don't know, somebody. I met somebody at this party.
A baguette? Was this somewhat a baguette? Was it a
Um,
French fellow? Was it
I
somebody that perhaps attended the Culinary Institute of America?
that's a possibility too. But no, they wore
A beret?
I think they wore a raspberry beret, the kind you find in a
Oh,
secondhand store.
that's right. I know that guy.
I know that guy.
I know the raspberry beret wearer.
The raspberry
I
beret.
heard, yeah. I heard they drive a little red Corvette, right? Is it something like that?
Yeah, I don't think no
Is it not
no
a
that
not little red Corvette? Some type of Corvette?
was it Little Richard?
No, what?
What? No, I know it was Prince. I'm
Am
just
I
being an ass.
thinking the song? Am I thinking the song Raspberry Beret, but in
But
my head to that tune, Little Red Corvette is happening? Does he have a song
yeah,
about a car?
yeah. There's a Little Red Corvette,
Raspberry
and then there's
Beret.
no,
Wait, Little Red
no
Corvette is it?
that's the tune to Little Red Corvette.
What I not Raspberry Beret?
No, no, that was she wore a raspberry beret, the kind you
Oh,
find
okay.
in a secondhand store.
Okay, and Little Red Corvette is another song.
Yeah,
Little Red Corvette.
clap, clap,
Okay,
snap.
okay.
Yes, yes. That's an older one, but I don't know. Maybe if I think hard enough, I can remember, 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 remember. Yeah, sure, Mr. Out of Place Rude Boy. I'll love some of your magical elixirs. Huh. Hey, that's what happened.
Yeah, I knew a Frenchman or a baguette would be involved.
I'm sorry. I love incorporating him. He's
That baguette is definitely a student at the Culinary Institute of America. That's why we keep running into him.
or quite possibly McGill University, which we
That
will.
wasn't a beret. Oh,
That was a
yeah.
fedora. Yeah, but
Does that that doesn't have something to do with
that might have
Better
some.
Call Saul?
It might, but the other thing that I forgot to mention is that I think I'd forgotten my I think I forgot my wallet at that party.
Oh
So
shit.
I know we're gonna have to go all the way back to Montreal. So
I thought the party was in your neck of the woods.
it was, and then I woke up in Montreal. I don't know how I ended up there, but I hitched back. You know, Quebecois don't exactly take too kindly to people that don't speak French, but it ended up working in my favor. I ended up running some people from Alberta.
You don't speak French? Je
Not at
ne
all.
sais quoi la ma belle des
Uh,
jour le baba?
ich kann nur Deutsch sprechen.
Oh,
Yeah.
oui,
But
oui.
we, uh, yes, yes. But yeah. Okay. So we're gonna have to go for a long walk. I hope you're ready for this.
All right, off to
All right,
Montreal.
off to Montreal, and here we are.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is this is Montreal, you reckon?
yeah, and I unfortunately left my I brought my whiteboard out just a little too early, but yeah, welcome to Montreal. I think
Uh,
is it
it's those same weird squigglies in my eyeballs as before. This I'm not sure. Is there one of these in Montreal?
I I think there was.
Oh,
Again, I don't really
where you
remember.
were?
I
I don't
don't
know if this is.
I don't know. I
I'm
honestly don't
not
remember
sure
if
that
this
this
was.
is. It's probably.
It's close enough, I would think. Don't you?
It looks French to me.
Well, well,
I think
since
I reckon it's fine. Yeah.
yeah, well, since we're here, I thought we might as well begin
Oh, look,
discussing.
now I'm on your right. I was on
Huh?
your left before.
I know that now. Now you're on my right.
Okay.
Now I'm remembering left and rights and where I was at and who I met with.
Oh
Yeah, that
yeah.
was a very strange rude
Uh,
boy.
French people.
Like what a like who dresses up like a rude boy anymore?
A baguette.
Apparently. Well, anyway, let's break out the whiteboard because we gotta still do this stream even though we're, you know, in French territory and they don't take too kindly to English speaking folk. But
No.
you know what? Whatever. They can deal with it. Um, but yeah, so another really interesting connection to here. I don't know if you're familiar with the ultra secret declassified project known as MK Ultra.
Yeah,
Are
that
you?
was that thing that happened at the Culinary Institute with Polybius. Right? Was Polybius involved?
Actually, that was not in any of my research.
Oh,
But
I thought MK Ultra was the CIA put Polybius in bars
oh,
and then gave people LSD.
oh no, this is a
I don't
more
know what
hor
you
this is a more
I don't know what
horrifying
kind of
true tale.
I don't know what kind of desserts you bake with LSD at the Culinary Institute.
Well, technically anything that can, hold the liquid of it, I assume.
Right, yes.
Uh, I I don't know. I don't know how long it lasts or what have you, but anyway, so yeah, today we're going to be talking about MK Ultra, which was a declassified military or CIA experiment on how to control people's minds and use it against America's enemies. Uh, and it spans from the United States and in Canada in particular, and we will cover that when we go through the time loop that is the MK Ultra frickin' tree because it's expansive. There's a lot of other projects that got kind of connected into this and consolidated into this. And again, it just only gets more interesting where these people like came from and where these like absolutely frightening situations just so happen to have occurred. Uh, Especially considering that, again, you would hope that your government wouldn't use you for experimentation, but
You would hope.
you would
That's
one would
generally
hope.
you would like that to be the case, yes.
But I thought today because I haven't really talked about it. We've covered LSD a handful of times,
Sure,
but
yeah. LSD is great to talk about.
always a good time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I haven't actually gone into how it was created, and so I decided to do a little bit of deep digging, and I found out some really fun, interesting stuff. So we'll start with the fun stuff before we get into the really, really dark and twisted, sad stuff.
Great.
So we will start with this gentleman right here. This is scientist from Switzerland, Albert Hoffman,
Oh yeah, I know
who,
this guy. He rode on a bike.
yes, and actually we're going to talk about that too. Yeah. So
All
this
right.
is Albert
We're
Hoffman.
starting at the beginning on
We're
this
starting
one.
at the very beginning on this one because the bike story comes a little bit later in his timeline. But so we'll start here in 1938. 1938, completely on accident while trying to find a basically an EpiPen, something that kind of stops respiratory failure.
Yeah. Yep.
He had gone through multiple synthenizations of different types of chemicals and compounds and found that none of them were really effective. He ends up finding randomly while playing with lysergic acid, uh, he ends up finding LSD. Um, he ended up like and he didn't initially know that there were like psychotropic properties that came along with taking
Sure.
the LSD.
Right.
So he ended up just trying like a little, like I think the initial dose that he tried was 25 milligrams, and he ended up having to go home for the day because the walls were melting. Then uh, when those and and another time that he decided he wanted to go all in to see what this stuff could really do. So on April 19th, 1943, this gentleman here decides to dose himself with 250 micrograms of LSD. And
Cool guy.
yeah, and again, after he dosed himself a week
Cool
prior,
thing to do.
he thought he'd try it again.
Yeah,
Um,
let's go. Let's fucking go.
he ended up getting so messed up that he had to have an escort home. And in Switzerland, they predominantly used bikes because cars are expensive.
Yep.
So he basically had to get escorted home by one of his coworkers on bike. And while Hoffman and his his coworker were riding home, Hoffman has this absolute freak out, and he begins claiming that his neighbor is a witch and is trying to eat him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
I didn't know this part.
yeah, he claimed his neighbor was a witch and was out to get him, and that he's seeing all sorts of spectrums and colors and all sorts of craziness.
Yeah,
And and it is
as
what
you do.
and it is on that date, April 19th, that many psychedelic enthusiasts claim as Bicycle Day, which is the day that Hoffman did the first real hardcore LSD trip.
Yep.
And actually, I have a graphic for that. I totally forgot because I thought that looked really neat. So yeah, there's people that still commemorate Bicycle Day to this day.
That's the stamp. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Bicycle Day stamp. And actually, this is a sheet of this is a very large
Very low.
image of that stamp printed on a sheet of blotter paper.
Oh yeah, that
Yeah.
is a whole lot of blotter paper. Um, but yeah, and that's a lot of acid. I couldn't even like I've seen sheets before, but nothing like that. That's pretty impressive. Um, so again, that's the more happy version of the story of LSD within the timeline of its actual existence, and
Sure.
it only gets more sad from here. So flash forward a couple years from 1943 until after World War II. Um, in Hungary was taken over by, of course, the Soviet communists, and Hungary was unfortunately just riddled with arrests for opposition and what have you. And this person right here, this is Cardinal Joseph Manzenti, uh, who was basically a he basically influenced the United States into considering the study of mind control. Uh,
Okay.
and it is solely because this poor gentleman here was in opposition to the communist controlled Hungarian government and like absolutely outspoken, and to the point that him going turncoat was just completely out of anybody's mind. And then he was abruptly arrested for treason in 1948. Uh, and it was within his arrest that, during his arrest, that he was, according to Mindsensi, tortured and like just beyond tortured, and basically succumbed to the communist demands. And
Okay.
he basically admitted um, to not only the treason, but he also admitted to stealing crown jewels, as well as
Oh,
planning to start the next world war with his statements against the communist government, and also to obtain power over the country.
crown jewels, huh?
I know, right? Like, again, the U.S. government was thoroughly interested in what the communists did to Mind Zenzi here. Zenti, not Zenzi, Zenti. Um, and again, this was also the time of course, the Cold War. The Cold War was a very happening topic for a lot of
Sure.
people. It's in full
Yep.
swing. The Red Scare is practically about to blow over, and the Korean War is about to start. So it is around just shortly after the American soldiers were coming home from the Korean War that there was this even greater fear that the communists had some sort of mind control, developed. Uh, yeah, so as the war is winding down, America's heroes are coming home, and it turns out that they're all inflicted with this weird set of beliefs. They believed that the communist ideals were not as bad as the US was portraying and were citing Soviet propaganda. So
Okay.
again, the US government, particularly the CIA, felt that it was, within their scope and their duty to kind of investigate. You know, again, I don't necessarily know what those dudes saw, but like I guarantee it was they were probably tortured just as much as the cardinal was. But this whole campaign was basically headed by this gentleman right here. This is Sidney Gottlieb. He is a poison
Okay.
expert, and
Okay.
he was hired into the CIA back in 1951. It was one of the first real big projects that he was on, and he was heading something known as Project Bluebird, or what more people know more of. It eventually turned into this Project Artichoke, and
Okay.
the entire research revolved around one concept, and I quote: "Can we get control of an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will and even against fundamental laws of nature such as self-preservation?"
Oh boy.
That is within their mission statement. These tests were initially done with very common drugs: marijuana, cocaine, peyote, mescaline, heroin. Uh, they were also doing their research, using their research grant from the CIA to study the effectiveness of dengue fever on people.
Okay.
So they would go to they went to a lot of African tribes and studied dengue fever to see if they can utilize it as a incapacitator for enemies, not like to actually kill them, but basically leave them so sick that they don't want to do anything, and see if they could weaponize it. Um, and it was also within this Bluebird program that we also kind of started realizing the probabilities of what we now know as a Manchurian candidate, or somebody
Yeah.
who
Okay.
was um, mind controlled into assassinating a major political figure, and that was also within the scope of this whole project here for Project Artichoke. Was they wanted to see if they could make an assassin that could forget who made them do this, basically.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, and again, this test runs like throughout multiple countries, multiple continents. Uh, it mostly was tested throughout Asia, as well as, again, as some may know of the MK Ultra Project MK Ultra, there were also unsuspecting agents, CIA agents, some sort of agents for American military that were also used in this testing. So it's sometime around 1953 that Sidney Gottlieb he's made like a real impression with this mind control research that he's doing, and so the head of the CIA and him are like this. They're super tight buds, and so Gottlieb basically was like, hey, give me control of the entire research division, and I will gladly give you all the mind control research that you want. And so it's at that point that the CIA consolidates Project Bluebird, and with a couple of other projects, including Project Monarch, which was uh, another, I believe it was another mind control
These guys
project.
were real into controlling some minds back in the day.
Again, yeah, they were
I
completely
wonder if they ever figured it out. Probably.
well. Well, we will see soon enough, because this dude, he's not like a one and done. This
Oh
man
yeah,
has
this guy
his
a couple
greasy
had couple. Yeah.
fingers
Okay.
in everybody's pies. So he basically takes over the CIA research department and renames this entire project Project MK Ultra, which
Yep.
I believe that's the documentation from Project Bluebird. That was my bad. I meant to show that for a second. But yeah, again, a whole bunch of different listings of like what they're actually trying to do, and these were declassified sometime in like the 1970s, and again, it to this day, not a lot of people know what the actual scope of everything was, but we'll of course cover into that in a second. So, but
Yeah.
first, one of the big controversies of the whole MK Ultra conspiracy revolves around this gentleman. This is Frank Olson. He is a biochemist who was basically a bio-war scientist for the U.S. Army in the CIA. Or excuse me, he was for the U.S. Army initially. And it's sometime in 1953 when Project MK Ultra started that he is approached by the CIA to help in this sort of mind control plan, program and research compounds that could potentially brainwash or make enemy prisoners susceptible to interrogation.
Mm-hmm.
So Olson, while working on this project, basically took note that what they were doing to some of the test subjects who were, you know, prisoners, psychiatric patients, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
Tony, welcome in, boss. How you doing?
Yo, what's up?
But it's because of Olson basically noting that these patients were being tortured because these were undesirable people. Nobody's gonna forget them, but like he's like these are still people. So he threatens to whistleblow, and he's talking to friends in his and coworkers like I think there's something really inherently wrong about this, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to work on this.
Yep.
Tony says, I wasn't talking to you, Thrash. I'm talking to the magical beard of panty dropping. I think he's talking to you,
Oh
Kuya.
wow. I honestly am thinking I gotta shave it off, right? It's getting silly. It's the winter's over. It's gotta
I
go.
I
What's up,
know.
Tony?
I need to get rid of this too.
Yeah, it's getting silly.
Mm,
I'll tell you how I know when it's time to cut it
mm.
is if it wraps itself around my neck at night and I wake up choking. So it's gotta go. It's time.
You going the full Merlin beard?
It's at the point where it's dangerous for me to have this thing on my face.
Oh, no small parts. But oh, so anyway, so Frank here threatens to whistleblow, and his coworkers are like, yeah, just keep it down. Maybe we'll get away with it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe
Seems
nobody
like
will
a
even
good
notice.
idea.
Yeah, you keep your mouth shut. And so uh
Well, I
Frank,
love flamingos and want to keep them safe, so
if you shave that beard or ruin my
uh,
fat storage, I will fight a flamingo. um so Olson is basically at his wits end. He's starting to like really feel the pressure of like all the torture that he's seeing, and it is within this time period that he gets an offer to go on a retreat with the other employees of the CIA in this little project.
Oh, CIA retreat. Sounds like a lot of fun. They probably
Oh,
played a lot of
oh,
Polybius.
and they go to this place called the Hotel Statler, and it is within
Oh, like
this
the guy from Muppets.
um it, it- um actually, excuse me, this is a completely different hotel, but they go to retreat to a different place.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay.
excuse me, but this hotel will come up in a second. Uh, Sidney Gottlieb uh, joins like the retreat, has a good time with people, has a few drinks, and then all of a sudden Sidney Gottlieb gets everybody's attention in the crowd and goes, "All right, attention everybody! I just want you all to know that I've dosed you all with LSD."
All
Everybody inside of your
right.
drinks was some dosings of LSD. So this
And
dude had,
everybody goes, "Yay!
yeah, exactly. And he,
Let's fucking rock and roll, CIA."
jeez Louise, and
Well, the entirety of the CIA was dosed with acid one time. That's what you're telling me.
something like that.
Okay, great.
But it's within this party that Olson here has an absolute terrible trip. Excuse me, breaks down
Ah,
cannot,
yes.
and
Okay.
like,
He looks like the guy that would cause a problem. Yeah.
yeah, he had an
You can tell.
absolute
This
breakdown.
guy, you shouldn't have given this guy acid. No,
He's a total square.
that's not. Yeah, yeah. He looks like
He's
the looks
probably
like Shao Kahn from Mortal Kombat ass. Fucking Kindred the Embraced shit. Eddie
your
Fiore over
soul
here.
is mine.
Oh wait, was that Shao Kahn?
What's that? Wait, which one is Shao Kahn?
I'm talking about the Emperor of Outland.
Yeah,
The
that.
like the big guy. There's the sorcerer that eats souls, and then there's a big
Oh wait,
emperor.
oh wait. Are you talking about the muscular guy with
No,
multiple arms?
no, that's Goro. Shao
Goro,
Kahn is
yeah,
the sorcerer that eats souls, right? That's Shao Kahn that eats souls.
I think so, but I don't know. But
Shang Tsung.
Shang
Shang Tsung
Tsung,
eats souls. Shao.
Shao
Wait,
Kahn
what's
is a
the
completely different
Shao
that.
Kahn is this guy. He's got a big hammer
Oh
and a
right.
helmet.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I remember Shao Kahn. Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
the skulls on his
Yeah,
armor.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like he looks like He-Man or Skeletor rather, or both put
it's,
together. He's the love child of Skeletor and He-Man, Shao Kahn. Yeah, this
I'm
guy.
Skeleban. uh, but anyway, so Frank Olson here has an absolute breakdown, and he tries going back to work, and he just can't hack it. He's reeling after the dose of LSD that he had, and it affected him so poorly that he basically had to take a leave of absence. And at the time, the CIA would help you out, and if you were dealing with medical issues, they would take you to like their hospitals and put you up for the night at hotels and shit. And so that's basically where the Hotel Statler comes in.
This was a problem. They had the CIA just had a lot of guys that were on so many drugs they had to put them up. I guess that makes yeah, okay.
Something like
Oh,
that.
right here. This is where you ended up. If
Yeah.
you were on drugs at the CIA, you got to go on vacation. Yeah,
Yep. You got to stay
that's
here for the night, and
sign me up for the CIA in the 70s.
and again, these are like co-workers of his, and he doesn't think anything of it. Goes out to dinner with everybody. Appreciates that they're coming to help him in his time of need. And it's at this point that, like, sometime in the evening, that Olson here ended up jumping from his room window, and he ended up dying.
Wow.
And the CIA did multiple.
I'm sorry I made fun of how he looks.
Yeah. Well, he kind of reminds me of the who's the dude from Inglorious Bastards, the German guy, the one who defected from the Nazis and killed them all. I don't know, but either way. Um,
He
so
was in Salt Lake
yeah,
City.
SLC Punk. Yeah, he was. He was
I don't remember
Mark.
his name from Inglourious Basterds.
Yeah, I don't remember his name from. I think it was Ziegler or something. What's his last name?
Yeah,
Or
I
Stigler?
honestly I really don't remember that one.
I don't know, but either way, Ringolson jumps out the window, and the CIA rules his death as a unaliving event. And,
What? Oh, is that what, are we saying that for like
that,
YouTube or
that
something?
that's
Are
true.
we saying that for the algorithm?
We're saying that for the algorithm.
Okay, I was like, wait, is that term that old?
No,
That's what I was gonna say.
no, that's definitely a recent turn of events.
Okay, all
But
right, okay.
but but it wasn't until like years later that Olson's son came around and said, "Hey, this doesn't add up. This something doesn't smell right." And he begins to start filling out the paperwork to demand a exhumption. And they exhumed Frank Olson's body, and they did a second autopsy. And the second autopsy showed that the injury sustained prior to the event was not consistent with the injuries that somebody would get from the jump from a high window.
Oh boy.
Something along the lines of the way that he had scrapes on his arms and body when he jumped out or he didn't have scrapes on his arms when he jumped out the window, which is what would happen if you jumped out of a window. You would end up getting scrapes and cuts on your arms. So it was suspected by many that he was killed by the CIA in order to make him not whistleblow on the Project MK Ultra.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's one interesting case. But of course, our dear friend Mr. Sidney Gottlieb, wherever he's at in my listing here, there he is. This dude again had his pies in a whole bunch of really shady shit. Um, there was
All
even
kinds of shady pies.
all kinds of dirty, dirty, shady pies, mostly involving mind control projects. He was also suspected of doing these particular mind control projects throughout the United States.
Okay.
And one case that was really interesting was a set of cases that went throughout the United States university systems. Particularly, what I could find documentation about was something that happened at uh, Georgetown University in D.C. That place. Uh, Gottlieb was known to use universities as bases of his experimentation, and it was basically the student body were the lab rats for him to test on. And it's here at Georgetown University, sometime in the 1950s, he began doing, getting open, studies of students who were willing and consenting, quote unquote, to doing some sort of an experiment. And they weren't told what they were given, what they were taking. And they're basically given bunches upon bunches of doses of LSD. And it becomes so popular among the college students that they find their own ways to obtain it
Oh,
and
yes.
synthesize it.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, these kids are smart. And it's predominantly like the university systems that the drug became extremely popular, which of course in turn led to the flower children movement and so forth, the
Sure.
feel good hippie movement, and the LSD hippies that we so stereotypically know today all started out of a movement to mind control people, but in fact freed their minds, man.
Hey, what
So
do you think's gonna happen?
so throw the screws to them. But another really interesting thing that they did, and again, this is all declassified, this is in public knowledge. They also had this very interesting case where they would go around San Francisco and New York City, and they would set up places called safe houses, which were these apartments that the CIA had bought, which they would install a two-way mirror, and they would lure in test subjects with sex workers. And
Oh,
and the sex worker, yeah,
oh.
and the sex workers would either willingly would willingly and consensually give the drugs to the person that they were, you know, um, working with, or they would slip it into their drinks. And it is beyond that two-way mirror that on the other side of that two-way mirror from the scene that we have set here with a sex worker and this random person on the other side of that mirror was a dude named
Mm-hmm.
George Hunter White, who is of course this guy. This goon right here was basically the one that Sidney Gottlieb got a hold of and said, "Hey, I need to facilitate some sex worker homes to do some experimentation. Can you help me out?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got you."
Jesus
And
Christ.
he was also privy, mind you, on the other side of that mirror to all of the tests that were done.
Okay.
And he was so into his project that he even installed a toilet in the two-way mirror room. And so he could sit there and not miss a moment of the action, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah, what a freak.
The American government hard at work.
American government hard at work being kinks with your tax dollars. But it was also with when these subjects would become susceptible to when they were basically losing their minds on whatever drug that they had given them, they would also subject these people to subliminal messaging and brainwashing tactics to test the effectiveness and see if they were willing to be like honest and truthful. Because again, this was all used for interrogation tactics against
Yep.
America's enemies.
Yep.
Um, so the only thing that they could find at the end of their experiment was that there were no results that you were able to gain any more truth or honesty from a person in with a with an LSD trip induced on them. But what they did find is that that the sex that if the sex worker continued to show interest in the man that they had worked with the night before, the men would generally be more open to talk. So basically came down to sex can make a man talk.
More so than LSD, or are the
More
numbers
so
not
than
in?
LSD. More so than
Oh,
LSD.
all right. Well, that's, it tracks. I think that tracks.
That makes perfect sense to me. Um,
LSD is for parties. Don't get it out of.
and
Don't get it twisted.
what's even well, speaking of parties, that's exactly what these goofballs did. So between Gottlieb and White here, they all and among other agents that were involved in this project, they would all trip balls with each other. They
Oh,
would party
sure,
all the time. They would
sure.
also partake of the sex workers too.
Oh, I bet they would. Yeah, that sounds really. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, the reasonable stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so again, like um this goes on for a while. And again, everybody is unassuming, nobody's consenting to do anything. They are just practically brought in, and despite their being the Hippocratic oath, they chose to do harm to these people.
Yep.
But so and speaking of doing harm to people, and kind of the reason why we're in Montreal today is because of this famous psychiatrist, Dr. Donald Ewan Cameron, who, in particular, his field of study was the study of, oh goodness, what is it called? I completely, did I not write this down? Excuse me. Yes, he had a particular fascination with a studying of what is known as depatterning, which is basically like, have you ever seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I
And how
have
they,
seen that movie.
and how they erase memories and stuff like that.
Yeah, can we do that? Is that something we can do with LSD?
Well, that's something that Dr. Ewan Cameron really wanted to pursue and read about.
How do
And
you do?
well, we'll we'll definitely get into that.
All right, sure,
He
okay.
definitely I would say not so well. Especially considering that Dr. Cameron here was given what was the equivalent of $1 million today in Canadian money, and
That's a lot of money.
yeah, so it's within his study that he started. Whoop, did I end up missing? Oh, I ended up missing a thing here. Whoops. There's something important that I needed to reference here, and for some reason it's not popping up. There it is. So this gentleman right here worked at this place known as the Allen Memorial Institute in Montreal, Canada. It is
Okay.
a Canadian mental institution, which is funded by uh, a particular university known as McGill University, very well known university in Canada. So this place was ran basically by the university's human ecology department, and despite the institute's hope to uh, pursue like patient wellness and what have you, that's not exactly what they did here whatsoever.
Sure, okay.
Uh, it was basically a front for doing experimentations on patients, ranging from, mild mental illnesses to the criminally insane. Um, what this doctor in particular did was he would have people come in for shock treatments. And as we know, shock treatment doesn't work.
Yeah, isn't real.
It is a fable. It works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it works about as good as a Tesla. Anyway, the dosing that this particular doctor was giving, he was giving patients 3 doses of electroshock therapy a day. The minimum or the maximum at the time per the time period was 3 per week, and he's doing this 3 times a day to patients. It
All
basically
right.
fried these people's brains.
I guess that's yeah, that seems like a lot and over an extended period of time.
He practically further hindered and disabled his patients to almost vegetative states. Um, and again, these patients just suffered from a range of illnesses, and one person in particular was probably one of the more high-profile cases, and of course, I would like to reference the Fifth Estate from the CBC, which was a super fast, which covered a huge swath of this story back in the early 80s. I believe this was 1980. This gentleman came forward. This is a man named Bob Logie. Now, Bob Logie here, at the age of 18, was dealing with severe leg pains, and he went to multiple doctors, and they couldn't find anything wrong with him. So it is when they referred to Dr. Ewan Cameron, he was told that he possibly was suffering from some sort of psychosomatic disorder that was making him believe that his legs were hurting. And of course, Dr.
Okay.
Cameron is trying to get people in the doors, so he has more test subjects to play with. And from what Logie recites, he said that he barely remembered any of the time that he had spent inside of this institution. And it is only upon the review of his medical records that he was able to find that he was dosed with LSD.
Okay.
And he was also put in something known as the sleep room, which is
Okay.
categorically the most frightening piece of like ridiculousness I've ever heard of coming from the CIA. They basically would take patients, um, whether they were high on acid or they would put them in insulin comas, and then they would put them in this black, like pitch black room, and then play subliminal messages over and over again for
Oh,
for days,
yeah.
for
Okay.
days. Um, but yeah, he's basically sent to this, and he basically didn't remember any of this stuff, and it was only until he got a hold of his medical records that he was able to see what they were doing to him. And it had turned out that around the 1980s, in 1973, when MK Ultra was declassified, the really shitty thing about it is that nobody knows necessarily how big the scope of this project really was, because uh, it was said that most of the documentation was destroyed, and what was left was basically the more lighter termed things that they had done during their experimentation. Uh, One thing in particular that, and again, what was also really interesting about this is that this was also funded by the Canadian government. And
Oh, of course it was.
mhm,
Yes. Yeah.
uh, yeah, the Canadian government was completely complicit with this entire operation and didn't for years admit any wrongdoing. And it's only until recently, and then like the last article that I saw was like from 2020. It said that in 1992, 77 victims received compensation from the Canadian government for the experimental treatments. Um, but the thing is that a lot of people that are still out there that didn't receive any sort of compensation or recourse are still out there. They're still applying to the Canadian government, and the Canadian government is dismissing them because they said that, oh, we already did all of our payments back in 1992. You're just trying to hop on a money train, sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
When the reality was that, you know this happened to a lot of people. I actually saw one story of a woman who was again put into electroshock therapy so bad that she was in a vegetative state, and it was so bad that that she had forgotten her entire family, let alone
Well,
her history with her family. It was
wow.
shocking. Uh,
Yeah.
and other even more, I guess this was a little side note, but another doctor that was part of the human ecology program over at McGill University was this dude, Dr. Raymond Prince. So Dr. Prince at McGill University, in his interview with the Fifth Estate, said that he had been given some funding from the Human Ecology Department to go study indigenous tribes of West Africa to see how they cured mental illnesses. And of course, in West Africa, in a lot of African nations, they still have the belief of like witch doctors and the like,
Oh,
or some sort
okay.
of natural healers of
Something,
of the
yeah.
tribes. Um, so it was within those kind of parameters that this particular doctor was doing this research, but had only found out after the release of the MK Ultra documentation that
Yep.
he in fact was working for the CIA. Um,
Of course.
I know. Again, unbeknownst to this dude, he was working for the CIA. So, so Bob Logie here doesn't. He eventually gets his compensation and what have you, and he gets heard. But he's like one of the more known cases of what the Canadian U.S. and the U.S. CIA were doing to
Yep.
regular patients. These are people that were here to seek treatment, and of course, Dr. Ewan goes on to live a decent life. He has a heart attack and dies, which is a little bit of justice, but not necessarily. Of course, no justice was ever going to be done until these people are properly compensated, and that's between the CIA and the Canadian government. But yeah, at the end of the day, MK Ultra was ultimately disbanded in 1973. And as I stated earlier, it's unknown whether the experiments continued after the funding, much like when we talked about the conspiracy of Nazi gold from, you know, the Philadelphia experiment and the experiments in Montauk. It is unknown where any of this funding really came from, other than the fact that Sidney Gottlieb had so many connections to the upper. He was basically so high on the food chain in the CIA. The only person above him was the director, practically.
Yeah.
Um, but it is because of the fact that the CIA had basically burned off most of the documentation, or didn't make it, declassified, that people to this day still claim that there's probably still projects of this type still occurring in this country, let alone, as we know, in other countries. Um,
Seems likely to me.
yeah, it goes to figure. Um, but yeah, it was basically the frightening concept that the government is something to hide, let alone they're trying to hide that they're trying to read our mind grapes. But
Yeah.
but yeah, again, at the end of the day, CIA was brought to court against the brought to court against the patients who were wronged in those situations. Uh, but yeah, again, many of the suffering and compensation was never, or there was never compensation for the suffering, really,
Yeah.
for most of the people that ended up in this situation. And and what's even more horrifying is that within a couple of the interviews that I saw, is that a couple of the colleagues of Dr. Gottlieb, most said that he was an authoritarian. There was like two within the group who were actually praising what he had did for the advancements of science,
Mm.
which is
Yeah. Yeah.
petrifying. Again,
Of course.
it's
Yeah.
just like saying that what happened uh, to the Chinese when the Japanese were doing experiments on them was perfectly all right. That's practically kind of comparable to what's going on here, except they're not instead of pulling out the organs and trying to put them back, almost like a fucking radio, they're playing with people's minds and shocking their heads. So yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of recourse for these people, and it was just all around not a good time. So I could find a picture of this asshole again. So Gottlieb basically got away with it and felt no repercussions to what was basically considered like a CIA frat, where people were just dropping acid and hanging out all the time. He later, like after the dissolution of MK Ultra, he ended up later apologizing for his role in the project. Kinda, sorta.
Okay, well, fine.
Yeah, again, whatever. But he later, according to multiple sources, pursued environmentalist actions and things like that, and humanist activities. He started a hospital for lepers in India, which, again, with the way that this man has infiltrated hospitals, who knows what was happening at this leper hospital in India. And who knows if this just so happens to be like another satellite of the experimentation that he wanted to pursue.
Right.
So again, at the end of the day, nobody was actually held accountable. The CIA, paid off their their dues to the patients, or at least the patients that were recognized by the Canadian government. And yeah, there's no real actual positive resolution to the story. This guy got away with it, and he died in 1999. And yeah, that's the story of MK Ultra.
Fucked up.
Isn't that some fucked up
Fucking
shit?
weird. Yeah.
Dude, like, I cannot believe how the US government, let alone the Canadian government, like, jointly pulled off this experimentation to unwitting people. And it is within these experimentations that a lot more stricter guidelines were put on human experimentation. So I guess there's a positive? Maybe? I don't.
Well, yeah, okay. I mean, you know what? A lot of times they don't put up a sign until somebody boogie boards down the stairway. You know what I mean? So, like, you got to smash a few skulls to get the sign put up.
Yep. No putting your hands outside of the vehicle. Somebody has to lose a hand or two before
Exactly.
somebody
Someone's
puts
got
it
to,
up.
yeah. There's a reason. Yeah. There's a
Like,
reason the sign's there. People
uh,
got to make mistakes.
people gotta make
No, fuck
mistakes,
these
but
men. Fuck these men and the American government. Really.
I mean,
What the fuck? What the fuck is wrong with everyone on the planet?
like that toilet in the room thing with oh god, what was his name?
I was jerking off watching people fuck
Absolutely, George
prostitutes
Hunter
on
White
acid.
was bait.
Everyone in the room, everyone involved was on acid. George was, the kids were, the hookers were.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great. Sounds like a great time.
Um, and yeah, again, at the end of the day, we still don't have any documentation that proves all the other stuff that they actually tried to pull on people. Again, the release about the Allen Institute wasn't really out there until like 1980, when the Fifth Estate made a report about it. There wasn't any sort of, a lot of people just thought that they were going insane and that they were starting to become conspiracy theorists.
No, sure. Yep.
Everybody felt that somebody was trying to turn the frogs gay or some shit like that. But yeah, this was like one of those really, I wouldn't say rare cases, but it's one of those cases where the conspiratorial beliefs of of people really comes forward in, or it comes to light as truth eventually, and this was one of those situations. uh and again, it emboldens, like, the whole, Area 51 is like, hiding something, or the Montauk project was real, and you know
Right.
they've got Demogorgon at a
Sure.
airfield
Yeah,
base
yeah, yeah.
in, what was it, Maryland?
I thought it was
that was,
like
that was
upstate New York or some shit.
yeah, you're right, it was in upstate New York. You're absolutely right, in Montauk, New York. Um, but yeah, that was it. um, yeah. Any questions, comments, concerns?
That's fucked up.
Little again, like not to say like oh the government is bad because like it needs some sort of intervention at some points, but like with this type of overreach and misuse of funds,
Yeah, this is the kind of shit when it goes wrong and
we're
the
all pointing
wrong
that.
people are looking the wrong way. This is shit that happens.
Mm-hmm.
This happens
Absolutely.
whenever people are in power, if they're the government, if they're a church, if
This
they're a fucking, police department that has too much reach in their community. This shit happens.
yeah, when you get a red scare, you gotta control minds, I guess.
I guess you gotta feed people LSD and watch them fuck. As a hot-blooded American man, what else can you do?
What else can be done other than acid and and fuck?
If this is what I must do to protect my nation, I will serve. Yeah, that's where we're at. Uh-huh.
Yeah, and again, the thing that it's really as much as I keep repeating it because it grinds my gears is that they they burnt off so much documentation. There's no actual
Oh yeah.
like
There's no way we'll even know what happened.
what they did.
Yeah.
Not a single thing. Like there's even more. I was reading like there's other considered conspiratorial like CIA projects that were considered to be part of the MK Ultra project, but ultimately I basically only followed what the documentation said and what people were getting from sources. I did not go in on any UFO site to read about this stuff today.
No,
I
no
tried my
UFO
best.
sites? Okay.
No
All
UFO
right, good.
sites.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, good enough. But yeah, that was a fucked up one, and I can only hope that the U.S. government has learned from their trespasses. And yeah, right. Because I just read this article today about how the FBI had committed 280,000 uh, uh, breaches of privacy
Sure.
per their
That's
spying
yeah.
program.
That seems like a low accounting of what number that
Mm-hmm.
probably is at, yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah, again, can't live with them, can't live without them. These people are morons. These are the people we're giving money to. Damn it.
Yeah, not necessarily really by choice.
But
So,
I again stop giving money to fund LSD parties for old men and start putting it into for
LSD parties for me.
LSD parties for me as well as
LSD parties for the people,
LSD parties for the people and
not
making
just the
water a human
Culinary
right.
Institute.
Making water a
Yes.
human right. But yes,
Yeah, how about that? All right,
and
before
not just
LSD, water for the people.
so so since this was somehow connected in your mind, what did you know about MK Ultra that connected Polybius and LSD and the Culinary Institute? I'm intrigued by this one.
Well, the Culinary Institute of America.
Hmm. Actually, I
No.
had a friend. I had a friend of mine who graduated from that.
Yeah, you had a friend that graduated from the CIA.
Oh, it's a fucking acronym. You're fucking with me. Okay. I'm like, what conspiratorial nonsense are you getting your information from?
The joke
Terrible.
was that every time you mentioned the
It
CIA,
was the
in
Culinary
my
Institute.
head,
They
they're wearing chef's hats, ratatouille,
you got a
right?
rat on your head, pulling your hair,
Yeah, yeah,
making
yeah.
it.
Making you feed people LSD.
It looks like
Evil rats that want everyone tripping.
they want. They all look like Bryan Cranston, like as a
Yeah, yeah.
what was it, Heisenberg?
Heisenberg, yes.
Goddamn right.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Yeah, making Polybius machines.
Making Polybius machines, cooking acid, and uh, starting hooker fronts, sex
Yes.
worker fronts, I should say. Excuse me,
Yeah,
that's an
yeah.
improper term. But
Oh shit, I use that term a lot of times.
I mean, I don't know.
Oh,
As
never
far
mind. That's yeah.
as far as I understand from people who work in that industry, that is a improper term, I guess. And again, I'm not here to offend people. I'm here to educate and make people know that their government is giving them acid, and we should all be going up to Washington right now with our hands open and saying, "Give me drugs."
Yeah.
But yes, but yeah, that was it for today. But yeah, that was an interesting walk to Montreal. That was a very quick, brisk walk to Montreal. I didn't think we were that close.
Nice to look around Montreal. Montreal's actually quite close to me.
Oh, really? I again, I always wanted to go here, uh, but I heard that again, if you speak English, nobody wants to fucking deal with you.
Yes.
More than likely.
I'm not positive that was Montreal where we just were. I think
I
we might have taken a wrong turn.
You think so?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm not positive that that was Montreal where we were. I've seen that statue, that tower before.
I feel like
I think they have one of those in Minnesota. We may have Minnesota's kind of near where you are.
yeah, but ooh,
I've seen one of those things.
here's a good thing though. I found my wallet. That's good.
Oh, all
Good enough.
right, cool. It wasn't stolen at the CIA.
No, it was not stolen over here, but I don't know. I'm hoping that that get agent doesn't come back to get me again.
Yeah,
No,
the
he's
rude
not.
boy, the rude was the rude boy outfit. Is that's what CIA agents wear?
Back in the 1950s, they were
They
all.
wear
I
little
tried to
hats
go.
and rude boy
I
outfits.
tried to go for the Men in Black sort of
All
mysterious
right, all
pope,
right.
you know,
Yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. It was a rude boy. He didn't.
But
He wasn't wearing. If this is how you tell if they're wearing checkered clothing.
if they have checkerboard socks,
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
usually
But
the tell.
if it's only if white and black are separate, if white and black are separate, I'm trying to think of a rhyme. If white and black on checkerboard meet, if upon the if upon the rude boy's feet, white and black on checkerboard meet, the man is sweet. If white and black segregated be, a man in black be he. That's how you. That's remember that simple poem.
Everybody. Uh, uh, April, June, and November. All the rest of 31. I don't fucking remember that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I don't even know. That shit doesn't make any fucking sense. I've
uh,
never gotten that to work.
30 days in September, April, June, and November. All the rest of
Or is
31.
it April May?
No, May has 31.
It doesn't. Do you know that for a fact?
Yeah, I'm looking at a calendar right now.
Oh
May has 31.
no, I meant from having a rhyme in your head.
I believe that I thought I looked up the rhyme. Let me see if
30
if that's
days have 30 days have November, January, March, and December. You can put any fucking months in there and it works as a rhyme. None
there
of
was.
the
Oh man, I found the poem, and what's even funny is this is in the public domain. I didn't realize that this was a
none of
public
us are
domain
right.
poem.
Oh, okay, we're not in trouble. Great.
Nope, nope.
Let's do it. Let's
30.
rock this. Yo, smoke, rock these fucking month poems if you got them. They're free for
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah, yo.
Steal
No,
this shit from the corpus.
I'm not gonna Dan Harmon this. 30
Okay.
days hath September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31 except for February alone, and that has 28 days clear and 29 in each leap year. That's the whole poem.
Wow. Okay, that's a whole thing.
Yeah, apparently that was. Oh, that's a Mother Goose poem. Interesting.
April, June, September, November.
No, September, April, June, and November. Yeah, yeah. Oh wait, you just said November. What the fuck? Again, all those mind-altering drugs. Terrible.
It doesn't. That's not going to help me remember what days have 31 months. It did the names, the months that rhyme in that poem don't have anything to do with the structure of the poem.
Well,
Like
September.
knowing that poem isn't going to make me remember.
I don't know.
It's
It's
there's nothing. There's something I don't know. Maybe I'm just maybe I'm just on the path of the beam
you you
that people who understand this poem are on. But
you're on Kentelmo levels of understanding the universe. I can understand that.
okay, yeah, and April, June, November, any 3 months rhyme with this September.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is true.
30 days have September, a log of poop, a cat, remember. All the others have 31. That, who the fuck it's, it doesn't, I don't know. I
Cat.
don't know. Maybe it makes sense. It's never made sense to me. It doesn't, those could be any words. Nothing about that poem makes me remember what 4 months. Yeah, just, I don't know. I've
Yeah.
always had a problem with it. It never processed
I,
correctly.
I always forget too, and
Yeah,
and
it
sometimes
doesn't.
I have to relook up this poem. It's yeah, no, I totally
Like as
understand.
we just did, yeah.
Yes, sometimes when you get old, the memory fades. But
That's right. That's correct.
but but yeah, that's it for today's episode. I thought that was weird. Thank you all for hanging out with us and learning about MK Ultra and learning about this douchebag Scott Sidney Gottlieb. I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Scott. I don't know. Maybe it's
He
because
looks like
I
a Scott to me.
he looks like I don't know. I haven't known too many Scots. Most of the Scots that I've known were douchebags. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. But yeah, that's the episode for today. Are you doing any soap stuff? Anything big going on?
I was thinking I got to do a sale soon, but I haven't, so I don't know. CuyaDK.tv. Listen to my podcast. Come buy some soap from me on Etsy. Come see me on Discord. CuyaDK.tv.
Yeah, what was the what was your podcast called again?
Maybe we'll
Maybe we should
talk with
maybe
Dave
we'll talk. Yeah.
Crane.
Yes. Very good. Yeah, go check it out, everybody. And yeah, it's been a blast. Kuya, as always, a pleasure, bud. And
Yep. Thank you.
yeah, I've been Thrash Cashew. That's been Kuya DK. Have a rad one. Take care.